Welcome back, ID60. So we are going to talk about programming this week. So programming is a super critical part of design. So regardless of what you're designing, you could be doing an interior stage, you could be styling, you could be designing, decorating, anything. You need to know who you're doing it for, why you're doing it, all the things, all the questions. So the program is what allows you to get to know your client. So we're going to delve into residential programming first, and then we're going to look at how that happens in staging second. So the module goal is to help you understand the importance of the programming process in residential design by learning how to gather and analyze clients' needs, lifestyle requirements, space conditions to create a clear foundation for functional, personalized, and well-planned design solutions. So we're going to take you through what programming is, client interviews. Function always comes before aesthetic. Sometimes, unfortunately, usually it works out pretty good though. And then we're going to look at research and competitive analysis. So, what is a program? Myself up a little bit here. What is a program? So basically, it's a client interview. So what you are doing is defining who your user is. So you're gathering information, you're analyzing the information, you're organizing the information, and then it helps you to create a goal for your project. So once you understand what your client's needs are, then you can start to design in a way that will meet those needs. So once you have collected all the information, you want to come up with a problem statement. So this describes the essential nature of the design problem. So it could be that this is a young couple, they're getting ready to have a baby, so you're redesigning the home so that it can house a nursery. It could be that their kids are moving out, and so now they're empty nesters, and so they need to redo the space into an office because they're starting a home business. So you're identifying what the problem is. And then the program definition is a summary of the goals. So how are you going to solve the problem? Does the house have to expand? Are you, like demoing a wall to give them extra square footage? Like what needs to happen? So what is the goal is what we would consider the program definition. So the purpose of your client interview and your program is that it serves a roadmap for the design process, and it really helps keep you all on track in terms of like what are the client's goals and are we meeting those goals. So programming is important because it establishes a strong foundation. So right from the start, we're very clear what the needs are. They're written. The client gets to review it and look at it, make sure that you've understood everything correctly. So it's a good foundation and a good way to start a design project in a very organized way. So it defines client needs and priorities. So within the program, you'll get to talk about what's the most important things because budget is 100% always part of the design equation. So it could be that you need to prioritize things that are the most important, and maybe that is where the money is allocated, and then the other things sort of trail off and start to become maybe wants, not necessarily needs. So you're really looking at the priorities of your client, making sure that you're putting those first in the process. Let's see, clarify project scope and budget. So how big is the project? Is it just a room or is it the whole house? And you can look at, well, if I change the floor in that room, where is it going to stop? So maybe it's a bigger project than we think. So maybe that new floor has to run through several rooms in order for the house to have a cohesive look. So having those discussions in the very beginning in terms of how much they have to spend is really super important. guides concept development. So again, you may need to work with your client in regards to styles, because you now have an understanding of all the different design styles there are, but they don't. So you may have them do research in regards to just images that they like, right? And so then you'll be able to define, oh, you like craftsman style. So let's start looking into that deeper. What are those colors? What are those finishes? So it starts to give you an understanding of what their design aesthetic is. And then it just strengthens client communication. So they're very clear that you're listening to them. You're very clear on what they want. So again, it goes right back in a loop to being a good foundation. So components, key components of the residential programming phase. So again, you do the questionnaire, and we're not going to do the questionnaire in this class, but I will provide you with a questionnaire so that if you ever need it in the future, you have something you can use. It helps talk about their lifestyle. So what do they do in this space? How do they use it? So you also have to inventory their furniture. Unless you're super lucky and you're going into a space that has nothing, they probably have some furniture that they're going to want to keep. Some of it's going to be great, some of it's going to be not so great. So you need to go through, do inventory, measurements, all of those things in order to understand what they're keeping and how it's going to fit in the new plan. You get to do budgets. That's always fun. And timelines to make sure that you're on time and we're clear about when the project will be concluding. And then any statement, goals, and requirements. So your client interview, what does it entail? So first of all, what kind of structure are you going into? Because that makes a big difference, right? Is it an apartment? Is it a condo? Is it a single family home? Is it a loft? Is it upstairs? Is it downstairs? So where is the home? And what might be some of the challenges, and what are just the qualities of the home? Does the home even have a design style, right? That maybe you're going to take into account or not, but you need to know if they're moving into an Art Deco home. That would be an important part in your program. The occupants, so who's going to be living in the home? So the ages, are there kids? Are there elders? Are there, three generations living in the home? Their roles, so are they working from home? Are they stay at home, taking care of the kids? The relationships, and if there are any accessibility needs. So again, if there's an elder in the home and they're in a wheelchair, that would be a big part of your design scope. Yes. So do they entertain a lot? Like, do they have people coming in every week? Because that's important. That means that guest room has to be super functional. Or is the guest room more of an office because they don't have guests? Or like, so it can be both, but where the priority leans in certain spaces may depend on how they interact with guests. Pets is a big one. So pets can determine for sure the durability of finishes. So if your client really, really wants carpet, but they have four dogs, you might need to advise them that that may not be the best solution. Maybe hardwood floors, tile, something that's easy to clean. Again, ultimately they're the decision makers, but maybe you choose, if they are determined to have carpet, you choose a carpet that's easier to clean. Maybe it's a carpet tile, so that if it gets damaged, you can pull it up, put new ones down without having to replace the whole thing. So it's important to know the things so that you can come up with solutions for your client, not necessarily restrict them on what they can have. Taste and personality. I love this little lady with the cigar. I hope to be that. That's who I want to be. Um, so what is your style, right? So a lot of times you can tell someone's style by what they're wearing. Um, and they also will give you information. And so you can have them go onto the internet, go onto Pinterest, create a board of the things that they like, and that will help you determine what their personal style is, even if they don't have a specific name for it. Cultural influences. Um, I'm not sure this is the right picture for that because this is more architectural style, but architectural style will be different based on where it is, right? So this sort of sweet Victorian, they have a few, I think I want to say Pasadena has, I know, a lot of craftsmen, but on the way to Pasadena, I'm not sure what city it is. There's like a Victorian row that's really cool. So depending, or in the beach, you're going to have a different style of house. So depending on where you are, the style of architecture will change. So again, style and cultural influences. So there will be clients that have a particular culture that they want to infuse into their home. So that is super important. If that is something that's important for them, that you understand that and you can do honor to it. Again, hobbies, like we talked about hobbies when we were talking about styling, wall decor, and accessories. Uh, a lot of times, hobbies will take over a space. So it's up to you as a designer to organize it in a way that is aesthetically pleasing. So this person definitely has a clock thing happening, right? Or maybe it's radios, clocks, I'm not sure. But they are organized in a way that is nice in the space. And so they don't necessarily follow my shelf rules. There's no triangles there. They're very straight. I noticed that. But because it is a collection, I think it works really well because they're nice, they're organized. The negative space is really well planned because I can see around each one of those things. Because obviously, the shape of those is what's important, which is why they're not being layered. So you will stage things differently based on what the importance is. And then I have over here my guitars. So more collections. So again, who would maybe think that skateboards should be over a fireplace as art? But if that's your thing, then it's really important that the client shows their personality in their space, or even a collection of plates. Color palette. So again, understanding what your client likes in terms of a color palette is really important. And you can do the same thing by having them sort of go through Pinterest or whatever website you use. House is also a good one to determine what they like. Because again, they don't know monochromatic or neutral. They may not know those terms and how they work in a room or an interior design, but they visually connect to something, an image, and so that's how you sort of draw out that information. Oops. Environmental factors, also important. So if they're by the beach and it's super sunny, or if they're in the snow, you're really designing in a different space. So lighting in those types of situations is super different. Like lighting in snow versus by the beach. So you really again need to make sure that you're taking samples there, understanding how colors are being affected by the environment. Again, there could be a lot of wind, so it may be that if you're doing an exterior patio layout, the furniture that you select is different in order to be able to hold up to that. You're considering the view, you're considering noise, so where the home is located is super important. So here's view. So, which view would you prefer? I prefer the big window in the bedroom. But that's not always possible, right? So sometimes you're looking out onto something that may not be as aesthetically pleasing. So how do you buffer that? Are you you're just putting up curtains, or is there something you can do that really is aesthetically pleasing that maybe shields from the view if it's something that you don't want to see? You also have to consider the views means windows, which means your space is open, it's getting a lot of light. Or if there's not a lot of windows, it's closed, it's dark, and it's tight. So again, how are you addressing those ideas? And here's noise. So are you right by a highway and you're like, oh my God, you know, what am I gonna do? As a designer, it's within your scope of work to solve problems. So that may even mean if draperies is not going to, a heavy drapery isn't going to cut the sound, and maybe they don't want a heavy drapery because it feels too confining. Maybe you suggest they grow some bamboo outside, and so that starts to buffer the sound of the traffic going by. Or if they're out, and the birds are chirping and everything's great, then maybe there's nothing to do in terms of noise. So lifestyle. So what do you do daily? Like, are you, or your client, I should say, are they in the kitchen cooking all the time? They're in the kitchen with friends? Are they painting? Are they outdoorsy types of people? So what are the family activities? So what are you doing to help support that? Like if they are couch potatoes and they watch movies all day, and maybe they're not couch potatoes, maybe they're in the movie industry. So they have to constantly be watching clips or films or whatever the case may be. Maybe that space for them, that sofa, that, area where they have to sit and watch TV is where all the money is spent, because it needs to be super comfortable. It needs to be super functional. But maybe for someone else, they never watch TV and they're constantly in the kitchen cooking. That's what they do to show love for their family. So maybe in that case, the kitchen is where that big bang happens. So these are the things that you find out during your client interview, and how you start to think about, what are the most important spaces and where is the most budget going to be spent. And this is the dreaded inventory. So you are going to, in almost every job, have at least one piece of furniture that your client wants to keep that you're like, oh no, what am I going to do with it? So I don't know. This is from my younger moments, but I remember when, like, my grandparents would have their sofa that, they bought and spent so much money on. They would put plastic on it in order to keep it pristine, and the plastic stayed there, and after a while you're like, let's just take it off and sit on the sofa. Never happened. So that will be the one piece of furniture that you end up having to keep, right? So you end up having to do an inventory of what they have, what they want to keep. You measure it to make sure that it's going to be working in your space, and you make it work. So you also start to consider the types of zone that your clients need. So the typical zones are your work zone. So that's any place where you're doing something, kitchen, prep areas, offices. You have your social zones like living rooms, dining rooms, outdoor spaces where you're connecting with people. You have private zones like the bedrooms and the bathrooms. You have storage zones like closets, pantries, built-ins. And then you have mixing zones where a space may serve a dual purpose. And I'll show you some of those. So when we talk about zones, again, these are questions that you're asking your client. They're not hard and fixed. For me, a bedroom is a private zone. I want a door that's gonna close. If like I'm having guests and my house is messy, I might throw everything in the bedroom, close the door. The rest of the house looks great. The bedroom might be a mess. That's me. Not everybody. So when I look at this bedroom in the image, it's actually a beautiful space, but it's a lofted space. So they don't even have walls. So whatever sounds are happening in that upper bedroom, it's traveling all the way down. So that's, for me, blurring the line between a public zone and a private zone. And then in the second image there, the bathtub has a sofa where you can just chill. Somebody's in there with you having a conversation. Great. For me, bathroom is more of a private zone. It feels to me like in this particular instance, it's not treated as a strict private zone there's enough space there for multiple people. So again, I'm giving you these zones, but your client ultimately is the dictator of how these zones work for them. So I just like these because I think they kind of give us all different ideas about how zoning and space can work. So in the first image, it's a shower, right? But then literally you go up the stair and there's a little mat and books. So you can start to create a steam sauna, you name it, or you can take a shower. It's actually right also in the closet, which I'm not 100% sure that that's a good idea because you don't want all the moisture in your really nice wood closet with all your clothes, but it's a beautiful image. And then here's another one where I have my shower right in the middle of what seems to be a bedroom. So there's a blurring of zones. So you also get to help your client discover what their needs are versus what their wants are, right? So function, especially in residential, has to come first. Because if it doesn't function, it doesn't matter if it's beautiful. So I could have an absolutely beautiful chair, but if I sit in it and it collapses, then it's not a beautiful chair anymore because it doesn't function. So we really have to start to think about function and what is a client's need versus a want. So I have these two pictures over here to the side. I'm not sure you can see it, but this is a glass of water, right? We all need water to survive. The planet needs water to survive. So that's a need. It's essential. Do we need a beautiful indoor pool? We don't need that to survive. It would be really nice to have it. I really want it, but it's not a need, right? So that's what you're helping your client determine. What are their essential requirements versus their preferences or nice to haves? So these are my mixed zones, and I really like mixed zones. They tend to happen in entryways a lot. So you come in, and what do you do with your stuff? So it's really nice to have some sort of millwork or hanging rack that I walk in. I can throw my shoes over to the side, hang up my purse, my bag, my hat, whatever it is, and then move through the space. So when you're mixing zones, they tend to be transition spaces or shared spaces. Like the guest bedroom always, or not always, but tends to be the place where you might have an office. So that would be considered a mixed zone. So it just adds a lot of flexibility, and in some cases, it can add connection. So this is the form I'm going to give you. So this is actually a programming form that I will give you. We're not going to fill it out, but it's really to have all of this on paper is super important. So just to reiterate sort of what I started with in the beginning, the form really helps you, or the program itself really helps you organize and gather information. And so again, hopefully you have 20 clients at a time. So you're not going to remember every single detail. So to have a binder or something to hold all your clients' information along with this client program is great. So it helps you stay organized. It clarifies the client's priorities. It saves time so that there's no miscommunication. You can look, it's there, it's written. You've both signed it. It's approved by you both. So there's no miscommunication. It just establishes professionalism. Again, I know that you're expressing your needs to me. I'm listening, I'm hearing you, and it's solid and concrete on paper. It supports design making decisions. So if you tell me you like Art Deco, but then you go and choose something that is Art Nouveau, then I'm like, wait a minute, let's rewind, go back so that we're staying on track. You can keep all your documents together. And so within your program, and there's the second class will go more into documents and business. And so that's ID 61. But you will have a binder where all your contracts and things are. So this program will be part of that. And it also enhances collaboration. Again, because you've asked all these questions, your client is really comfortable telling you all of these things that they want, need, and desire, and they know that you're listening. So let's do a program. So last thing, that once you, I don't know where to put me. I'm going to put me down here now. So once you are, well, I take that back. This could happen at any time in the project, but it can also happen at the end. And it's called research and competitive analysis. So what you want to do is never start from scratch, right? Like if the chair has been invented, you don't want to design another chair. You want to be inventive. So you want to look at that chair and say, how can I make it better? So as a designer, you tend not to want to start from scratch. You want to look at something that's already been done, which is research. And then you want to figure out maybe what didn't go well and what you can do better. So my favorite example of this, and I keep dating myself, but I just can't think of another one. And so some of you may not at this point even remember Blockbusters. But when I was probably high school, college, the best thing to do on a Friday, I mean, it was like the spot was to go to Blockbusters and get your VHS tapes. Oh my God, I know I'm sounding really old. And you would go and you would rent them, and it was like, what movie are we watching this weekend? And you went with your family or your friends, and you pick out movies, you take them home, and then you watch them, and you'd have to return them like in 3 days so somebody else could watch them. I know I sound so dated. But they had really cute commercials with this I think it was a guinea pig and a rabbit and the whole, it was a thing. And so Netflix came along. And so you guys all know Netflix, but Netflix started because remember I said VHS. So in case you don't know, it's a little square box you put into a thing. And then CDs came along. And so Netflix was like, you don't even have to come into the store. You can tell us on the computer what videos you like, and we'll send you a CD in the mail, and then you just have to send it back to us. You could put it in a Dropbox, send it back to us. So they were like, Netflix looked at Blockbuster and saw how well they were doing and said, we can do it better. And they did, right? So then Blockbuster lost some business. Netflix picked up some business. But then Blockbuster said, okay, well, we can do that too. So then Blockbuster started doing the same thing, sending out CDs, and then you'd have to mail them back. It was called Total Access. But some of the stores went away because less people were going into the store and more people were ordering online. So then we all know, because this is what you guys know, then what happened? Streaming. So now Netflix is like, boom, boom, we all know what Netflix is, right? There is no more shipping back of CDs or whatever. You guys don't even know who Blockbuster is anymore because they couldn't keep up. So Blockbuster has totally gone out of business. Probably the last 7 years maybe, which is really sad. It was sort of a fun thing to do, to go even and meet people at Blockbuster. But now Netflix kind of won the game, right? And you guys now don't even know who Blockbuster is. So that's competitive analysis. You say, okay, there was this great thing that was happening. How can I do it better? How can I do it better? Right? And so I'm sure one of you will be talking about this lecture and you'll say Netflix doesn't even exist anymore because XYZ took it over. Or, they have the Meta glasses. You can just watch movies in your glasses. Who needs Netflix? Who needs TV? So there's always something that's better, 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 better. And as a designer, that's exactly what you should be doing. So this idea of research, looking at what exists, making it better, and that includes your own projects. So once you've completed a project, you always want to go back, check in with your client and say, hey, how did I do? And if there's something that's not working great, if it's something you can fix it. If you can't fix it, make that note. Would have done that differently next time, so that your projects continue to get better and better. Oh, I told the story too quick. So yeah, Blockbuster went away. It really makes me sad. It really was fun. So summary and reflection. So programming just defines the why and the what. Why are you designing and what are you going to do? Like why? What's the problem and what are you going to do about it? Client interviews anchor the design in real human experience, and good programming leads to better design solutions. So that is the end of that lecture. We're going to have one more lecture that sort of takes you through this process, except for staging. It's a little bit different because you don't have a specific client. All right, I will see you all later.